No i teraz rok studiów Microsoftu, które co w tym roku dużego robił, poza Gearsami i poza Halo? Kurwa, nie pamiętam. Trochę było tych gier na konferencji, ale nie pamiętam po prostu, żadna mi się w oczy nie rzuciła. Także zobaczymy, jestem tego bardzo ciekaw, co to właśnie będzie tutaj. A mam nadzieję, że coś fajnego. Chyba znowu zapomniałem przewinąć podczas live'a, tak. Generalnie, jeżeli ja zapominam przewijać ten terminarz, to znaczy, że coś mnie zainteresowało i że zapomniałem o tym kompletnie. Także wybaczcie mi za to, ale cóż. Także przed nami rzecz kolejna. A więc właśnie te studia Microsoftu. Zobaczymy, co tam dla nas będą mieli. Czyżby już? Czyżby nie już? Okay, widzę, że scrollowanie musi zostać, bo to dosyć długie tytuły tych tutaj naszych konferencji. Także okej. No i mam nadzieję, że będzie coś fajnego. Może będzie coś o State of Decay. To jakby taka jedyna gra od Microsoftu... no dobra, jest tak. Jedyna gra od studiów Microsoftu, jak pamiętam, Forza, State of Decay, Gearsy 5 i Halo. I w sumie tyle. Także... No, przez chwilę grała jakaś dobra muza, ale już się skończyła dobra muza. Ja już tak dawno nie słuchałem dobrej muzyki. W sensie takiej muzyki, jakiej słucham na co dzień, czyli metalu, folk metalu. Aż mi brakuje bardzo. A ja w ogóle będę być może miał okazję pojechać na koncert festiwala 18, bo w Parczewie grają i bym się karnął. To co prawda festiwal folkowy, ale byłoby myślę całkiem przyjemnie. Okej, myślałem, że już się zacznie, ale chyba jednak jeszcze nie. Szkoda, że nie ma Sony w tym roku. Gdyby było Sony, byłoby więcej dużo ciekawszych paneli, a tak to...
And now, Xbox Game Studios, 1 year later. Please welcome your moderator, Larry Herb.
Dobra, jestem ciekaw, jak dużo tych tutaj różnych studiów będzie.
I am very excited to be back on this panel. You know, it's funny, I had the chance to do, they're like, which panel do you want to do, the elite one or the, this one? I said, I want to do both. So, really excited to do this panel. We're going to have an hour for this panel to talk with Matt Booty and some of the folks from our recently acquired studios about making games.
No tak, jeszcze Obsidian, czyli tutaj będzie The Outer Worlds.
Company like Microsoft and still be creative. So, who are we bringing out first? I apologize. Matt, all right, let's start off with the boss himself. Matt Booty, the head of Xbox Game Studios. Matt, come on out. Have a seat. Welcome out. All right, I guess we're going to try to see if Dom Matthews from Ninja Theory. Dom, come on out.
Ninja Theory robił jakąś chujową strzelankę. W sensie, no dobra, zakładam, że ona jest chujowa już teraz, ale nie podoba mi się. O, Obsidian to będzie ciekawe. Co teraz Obsidian? Obsidian teraz robi The Outer Worlds i o tym będzie jutro panel.
And for this last guest, I'm going to ask everyone to please put on your splash ponchos. Mr. Tim Schafer! They're in the splash zone!
O, dzień dobry. Cześć.
Thanks, everybody. So, really excited to have everybody out here. This is an incredible amount of talent we have on the stage here. And Matt, I want to start with you a little bit and talk about the role of first-party studios and your vision for Xbox Game Studios.
Sounds good. We are, a lot of folks might, some people might know this, some might know, so I'll kind of walk through it. We have 3 ways the content can make its way to an Xbox.
Sure.
And we're fortunate, I think, as Xbox to have options on that. One of the ways is our ID at Xbox program, which is where we bring in some smaller scale indie stuff. Another way is with all of our relationships with the bigger publishers, like your EA, Activision, Ubisoft. So they kind of form the bookends of the big and the small. And the job of first-party studios, of Xbox Game Studios, is really twofold. The first is to make sure that we have got games that are making sure there's always something new going into Game Pass, and to make sure that we've always got games to support new things like Mixer, and to support new things like Game Pass PC. And then we've also got big franchises, the things like Halo, Minecraft, Gears of War. So we sort of sit somewhere in the middle of those two in terms of what kinds of content, but it's really our job to make sure that when Xbox is doing something new, that we've got games that are going to support it, and make sure that our fans have got great stuff always to enjoy no matter where we're going.
Now, it's been a heck of a year because just about a year ago, we had the first group that we announced of acquisitions. Yeah. And this slide up here that you see with all of our, we call that the family slides, those are families. But there's it's grown exponentially, hasn't it?
Yeah, I was just staring at it thinking maybe we could play bingo or something. We could try to name something about a game and see if we can connect all those dots.
But it's an amazing collection of entertainment, right?
It is. So more seriously, we have been very fortunate to build on some long-standing relationships that we've had. Over the last few days, as I've been talking with people, that I've gotten some questions of how do these things come about. And in just about every case, it is more the fact that we've worked with people for so long and that we've made games with them, and we just have gotten to know the great people in the studio. So it's been great to sort of finally sort of seal the deal and work more formally.
Now, if I recall a little bit of the timeline correctly, Dom, you joined us about a year ago. It was announced. It was your last E3.
E3 last year, yeah.
And then at EXO in November,
Yep.
Fergus, your team from the city joined us. Then just a few days ago, Tim.
Thanks for watching.
You held out.
Yeah.
But you're here, so it's really been great to see some of this exciting activity. Let's roll back a little bit and talk about E3. We had an amazing earlier this week. It was great to have everybody talk about some stuff on stage.
Yeah, it was great. So did everybody see the briefing? I don't know if everybody got a chance to watch. Yep. I was backstage. I was going to tease Larry a little bit. Everybody saw Keanu come out on stage for Cyberpunk, and I'm watching backstage thinking, I got to go on stage after Keanu. Yeah. And then we're backstage watching the Elite controller, and I'm like, I got to go on stage after the Elite controller. Yeah. So I feel like you're kind of setting me up there.
No, też ale Cyberpunk tak poza... Każdy rozmawia o Cyberpunku, jak nadal to nie dociera. A co to dopiero musi być dla ludzi, którzy to tworzą, to już w ogóle jest...
So we think it was a pretty good showing for us. We also talked about, again, Game Pass showing up on console, on PC, Game Pass Ultimate, pretty exciting.
Yep.
Talked about our new console, talked about new streaming stuff. So a really great E3. And for me, having been to a lot of E3s over the years, it does feel like there's a little something different in the air. Things are changing, and maybe we're heading into some exciting times.
I want to swing it over to you, Dom. Tell us about your E3, because last year you joined the company. It's been a year since we've been working with us, but you had a new IP you announced.
Yeah, so announcing a new IP on stage. So I mean, so Bleeding Edge, which we announced in the briefing, it's been in development for a number of years, and kind of as an independent studio, we were thinking about how we were going to announce this thing, how we were going to launch this thing. We then joined Xbox Game Studios, and suddenly, okay, want to be in the briefing? Yes. So suddenly we get to be in the briefing and then be on the show floor on the same day to let people get hands-on. So it's just been incredible to be able to kind of do all of that in one go with the team at Xbox behind us just to make that happen. It's been awesome. And like a real highlight for me has just been meeting the fans. You know, now that we're part of the family, we're part of the Xbox fans family as well. So to be able to meet all of them and feel that love has just been incredible.
Fergus, how about you?
Well, I mean, it's the same, I think, like with Dom, I mean, after having studios for so long and being independent and working and, I mean, making awesome games, sometimes it always felt like, where were we going and where are we going to get to? And having Microsoft, look at us and look at all the other studios and say, hey, we see you as people that can deliver incredible content, incredible experiences, and then have that support. So we opened up the press briefing, which was just crazy. I mean, in however many years I've been doing it, I mean, it was always like, yeah, that's never going to happen. And so, to get that kind of support, for the Outer Worlds was, I mean, it was great. And it really kind of just shows that the internal studios are incredibly important. We get the support that we need, and we kind of now get to dream. I don't know if that's the right way to say it.
Yeah.
We get to kind of dream of kind of where we want to go and what kind of games and experiences we can give to people. And that's why I started doing this 28 years ago.
Yeah.
And getting to do it now is awesome.
Now, one of the announcements, of course, we had was Tim's Double Fine Studios join the team, which is awesome. Tim, that's got to feel great now for you. I hope it does.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It started the week off with a bang. That's for sure. You know?
Yeah.
And that's those kind of moments are. Really feel really fortunate to be part of the studio, but to also have that moment on stage. Because when you make games, you're often locked away in a little room, and you're hoping to make something that makes someone happy, but that person is very far away often, and you don't often get to see them laugh or something like that. So to be able to come out on stage and hear people in the audience just facing you and hear their reaction, and when they said the name of the studio, Double Fine, and everyone cheered, that really feels good.
Yeah,
Feels really
and
good.
there was a loud cheer, not as loud as Keanu. But it was up there.
Well, he had a smoke machine. I mean,
Yeah.
It's, in all fairness.
You had some awesome
we're
entry music.
asking for smoke
Yeah,
machines.
next year we're all getting smoke machines.
Matt,
Yeah.
smoke machines.
Smoke machine.
Pyro.
Matt, it's been a heck of years. We talked about the acquisition. What do you look for when you're, when Phil comes to you and says, "Hey, let's go get some more studios. Here's the checkbook." Do you go? What are you looking for? Like, what are you looking for in terms of what a studio is, in terms of what they've done or what they can do? Tell me about that.
Well, it really starts with the people in the studio. Every single one of the studios has got such great people in it, great cultures that they've built and that are fun and built around their commitment to creativity, and also we feel that they're aligned with, they share a picture with us that gaming can be something good for the planet, that gaming can be something that brings us all together.
Yeah.
And I think we share that. The second is, what each of these studios has done is actually pretty hard, right? To keep an independent studio independent for 10, 20 years, that is very difficult. And a lot of, if you spend time, talking to the people into the studio, they've had some hits and some games that have done well. And then there's been some times when things didn't go so great, but they stuck together. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is just a real reflection of the character and just the leadership that exists inside the studio. And then lastly, what are the ideas, right? I mean, we could sit here and, probably do an inventory of 36 games that have come out of, just the folks sitting right here on stage with us, right? So when you add all that up, the people in the studios, the cultures they've built, the values that they've established, you think about the studios and the way they've managed to stick together through a games industry which is pretty, at times, dynamic and a lot changes. And then lastly, just the ability to keep coming up with great new ideas. Those are really the things that we look at.
I want to ask the other side of the room, you guys, from the studio perspective, what do you look to do? What do you want from Matt? Like, do you just want him to just stay out of our way? I mean, I'm curious to see what that dynamic is. Tim, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, Matt put a lot of trust in us, and he's been really clear about that there's that trust can continue, and there's places where we should share information, things we don't have to share, and so I feel like we're just starting on this process, so we don't know exactly how it all works out, and you guys know a lot more,
a little bit more,
about how it works, but that was part of what made us feel comfortable about it, is knowing that there'd be a creative, safe space for us to. Instead of having an idea and a baby just brand new idea and have to go pitch that to like 8 publishers or something like that. Instead of that, we could incubate that and develop maybe a prototype and prove these ideas out and then share them. That's something that's really appealing.
And I think also just the when we first were talking to Microsoft a year ago, and I had my first lunch with Matt. The message then is the message now, and I think that's for us. It's just consistency. I mean, a lot of what our businesses have been and the games we made for so long, it's kind of this, kind of working with this group and then working with this group and then trying to do stuff internally and knowing, with Matt, what he says is, go make the games you want to make and we're going to support you. And that is like every single phone call I have.
Jakby to były studia, które były tego warte, jednak Sony daje wolną rękę swoim studiom i tam wychodzą zajebiste gry, bo tam lepsze są te gry pod względem historii. Nie wiem, po prostu lepsze. Aż tak szkoda, że nie ma Sony na E3.
Things that we want to do, and just having that consistent message has been awesome.
Yeah, and I know that it's got to be easier because, to your point, Tim, you've all made the point, is that you don't have to go visit different publishers now. Mm-hmm. Matt's team can handle that. You guys can do what you do great, which is make great games, and then the team can work on a lot of the other elements, right? Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a long way to go. Yeah. We've got a great mix of talent here on the screen, but also here on set. What's it like to create? And this isn't really a fair question because Tim, you're off the hook because you've only been with the company 6 days.
I'm gonna answer anyway. I'm gonna make something up.
But I guess I'll go, Dom. What's it been like for you for the past year, and Fergus for you for the past few months? 6 or 7 months.
Yeah, it's been a nightmare. No, it's been great, and I think kind of to echo what's been said. Like I think from day one, it's been about placing the faith in the creative.
Yeah.
And let's try and remove any other struggles and worries you might have that get in the way of the creative. And the team's really been true to that. So, day to day, for us at Ninja Theory, before joining Xbox Game Studios, we had a bunch of people in the studio that were working on work-for-hire projects, really to try and fund our own IP and our own work. Yeah. And since the acquisition, we've been able to just have our entire team focused on what we want to make. Yeah. Games that we love to make for the fans that love them. That's our focus. And the great thing is that the balance that we have with Matt and the various teams within Xbox is that when we feel that we need support, whether it's from the marketing team or the user research team or the legal team or finance team, it's there for us when we want it. But other than that, we're left to get on with our job, which is making awesome, compelling games for fans.
Yeah, because a lot of folks forget that, making great games is very hard. I've never done it. You guys have made some amazing stuff. But that's just part of the puzzle. As you talked about, there's the IT infrastructure, there's the getting the equipment, there's the marketing for the game, there's just all the business side of it. Yeah. That hopefully Matt and his team can...
No i to wam powiem, to jest najgorsze w tym wszystkim. Bo trzeba się zajmować wszystkim i kiedy się zajmujesz właśnie marketingiem, ogarnianiem wszystkiego innego poza tworzeniem gier, nie ma czasu na tworzenie samej gry i my to teraz doświadczamy. I mam nadzieję, że coś nam uda, chociaż tak znaleźć ci pomóc, jeśli chodzi o marketing, także to akurat nam się udało.
Burns within the team to make. And at times we haven't been able to invest in our teams enough and give them what they need. But now we're in a position where we can fund the teams with simple stuff like the best IT kit. We're trying to make the best games in the world. Let's make sure people have got the best monitors that they can have. And I know that sounds like a small thing, but really for us as a studio, it's been penny pinching at times, which you need to be. But now we get that backing to be able to go, you guys go and make what you want to make, and we'll back you to make it.
And your point about the access to certainly that stuff, but there's also this other neat thing is that we have this incredible collection of studios, and inside of it is this amazing talent. So if you want to learn about, hey, what do you think the best controller config is for a fighting game? You guys certainly don't do that. But I'm saying there's all this other talent that you can lean on and knowledge base across.
Yeah, I mean, so we're part of a group of 15 studios now, and it's super collaborative, and it feels like a very safe space. So now we have a bunch of, like, from being an independent studio or working with publishers where everything is kind of under wraps and you can't be too friendly with people. Now we have studios all around the world that we can kind of knock on the door and go, hey, have you done this thing before? And they go, yeah, we can talk to you about that. Oh, and that performance capture that you've been doing, can you talk to us about that? Yeah. So it's awesome to be collaborative, right across the board and try and solve these problems together. And the nice thing is that, I sat in the briefing, and it's great to feel like we're all gunning for the same thing. What we get to do is make the games that we want to make. But if we can make the group as a whole successful, then we can keep doing that for years to come. So part of that sort of feeling of being part of that group is that I can cheer on everyone else's games.
But I think also the thing that I think is a super key aspect, which Matt pushes and everybody else pushes, is this idea that we're Obsidian and we get to be Obsidian. Dom gets to be Ninja Theory.
I'm also going to be Obsidian.
See, I wasn't going to bring you up. It was just, so our culture is super important, and being able to. So it's interesting, actually, as businesses, we're still our businesses, and we still do certain things that Microsoft has never.
Ja nie wiem, kto tak zarządził. Ja tego nie zarządziłem. Ja się praktycznie RFX nie zajmuję. To Denis tak zarządził. Znaczy, z tym teaserem na E3 to ja wymyśliłem, żeby przed konferencją Microsoftu zrobić krótki teaser, ale strona na Steamie miała się pojawić Przynajmniej ja tak proponowałem z tydzień po E3. Nie wiem dlaczego się pojawiła teraz. Także nie do mnie to pytanie. Bo ja teraz nie siedzę w ogóle, nie czytam nawet czatu studiowego.
I think for a big company like Microsoft, sometimes it can be sort of an easy thing. We have the Microsoft way, and you're all going to comply, and it's going to be like this, and you have your blue badge, and so forth and so on. And that's not the goal here. The goal here is to let us be us. And now with sort of like not having to handle all of the things, we can just put that all into our Ninja Theory game, Double Fine game, Obsidian game to be more of what they were what they were before.
Tim, I want to ask you, I know that a lot of folks have come knocking on your door in the past to try to buy your company, I believe. What made you choose us? Well, Matt.
Well, Matt makes a really nice pitch. No,
Yeah.
and I mean it's true. I mean that really is true. We weren't really looking, but when Matt started talking about what he's been doing with these companies, that it's not about absorbing them into and changing them, but about letting them stay creatively what they were before and just helping them do it better. That is, that does sound really nice, and that does sound like a great thing for our whole team and for being able to make better games. That people will like. That was a lot of the appeal for sure, because no one who makes an independent studio is like, I want this to all be changed by some big corporation. Like that's not why we started them.
Those are all the video games we've played where the big bad corporation comes in and ruins everything, right?
Yeah. You wanted to, but I think all our studios had enough time independent on their own where we could establish who we are, and I think we all know who we are, and so we'll know if someone's changing it. So we're pretty. I think we all have strong identities in our companies and cultures that can withstand that. But I think knowing that that Xbox doesn't want to change us is a big part of the promise of it.
Matt, I want to talk to you about the collection of studios that are now under your charge. It's not just this collection of studios, but now, most of the studios a year and a half ago were in the Seattle area.
Yeah.
Now, we're all over the world. And can you talk to us about what that's like working globally?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just that there's a huge team that makes this all work, and I'm also very fortunate to work with a number of people that could also be doing this job.
Yeah.
Bonnie Ross, who runs 343, a longtime Microsoft veteran, she runs a team of hundreds of people working on Halo. Even, when I think about even Ninja Theory, which is a fairly large group and has got tremendous leadership, there isn't a lot of housekeeping to do. So for me, it's to go visit the studios. It's much less, hey, we got to go check in on what Tim is doing. It's more the excitement of let's go see what they're working on and let's go check the stuff out. So it really is. I think of it as just it's a privilege. It's an honor that I get to say my job is we get to go to Montreal, we get to go to Cambridge, we get to go down to SoCal. We to be able to visit all these places, and then there's the studios in Redmond, that all have tremendous senior leadership on them. I was out. I just had a baby, so I was out for a month. And thank you. And Bonnie Ross took over. Thank you.
She did.
She took over running things for a month. And it was kind of funny because I think within the first day or two, everybody started submitting, hey, can we all get new computers? Can I, can I expense my trip to Disneyland? And Bonnie's like emailing me, I don't think I'm supposed to just approve these things, right? But to be able to have people like Rod Ferguson, an industry veteran, and Tim's been at this. I mean, just to fanboy out. When I first started working on games, I was playing games that Tim worked on, right? Yeah, likewise. So the word that we use, and if somebody's got a better one, I'm open to it, but it's really kind of this federation of studios.
Right.
And I feel lucky that at any point in time, anybody could take over leading anything at a time. It's really, I think, my job to make sure that we've got a good North Star of where we're trying to go, and that we all have got kind of a common set of principles. But beyond that, like the best part of my job is being able to be like, let's go see what Fergus is working on, and like let's go visit Rare, like what's going on there, right? Let's go to Stockholm and see what's going on with Mojang, and that's just an amazing part of this job.
Yeah, and that's also something I want to point out is that a lot of folks, I get asked all the time, hey, I want to work in the games industry, but do I need to move to Seattle? Well, no. You know, we've got all these amazing, and every studio is looking for great talent, so there's all these lovely opportunities that, you know, can exist now or in the future.
Yeah, and I would offer up, especially to people that are starting out in the industry, more and more, and you guys probably know way more about this than I do, but you don't have to be in the same place to make a video game. So if you saw the trailer that we showed for Ori 2 during our briefing, amazing trailer, that team, none of them live in the same city.
There's no office.
There's no office. They all work virtually over the internet. They all work communicating, you know, through Skype and things. So it is possible to make an amazing game without even living in the same city together.
Yeah, working with a group around the world, which is kind of what everybody does now, because you know, you were talking about your access to the guys at Rare, of course, which are on the other side, but you're talking to folks in the Coalition, obviously here at Microsoft and all over the place. So now we have this global family.
Yeah, and it is, occasionally we want to try to bring everybody together, you know, where we've got some events. I think it's our job to really facilitate some connections.
Yep.
And so we try to, hey, let's get all the artists together and just see what they want to talk about. Let's get all the programmers together.
We had we're going to shift gears a little bit. We had a lot of PC games in the briefing this year. For one of yours opened the show. It was great. Where do you, I want to ask all you guys, just kind of PC, we have PC Game Pass. So there's a lot of PC excitement right now. There always is, but we're getting back into it. But I want to talk, what do you think PC gamers look for? We'll start with you, Fergus.
I mean, yeah, what do PC gamers look for? I think, I don't know, sometimes I think at least I don't talk about Obsidian, and I'm sure it's a little bit the same for you. We focus so much on the game, right? And we want our games to be that let everybody play them, right? Yeah. And so we don't want to just be console, we don't want to just be PC, you know, we want everybody, like, we make games, we make RPG adventures that we want people to go on. Like, we create these awesome worlds, and super important. Now, as it relates to just the PC, I mean, that's where I started. I started, you know, making RPGs with Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 in, you know, the late 90s, and so we were very PC focused. And I think there is difference between, you know, your straight up, you know, console RPG versus PC RPG, but I also see as time goes on, you know, with the new Xboxes, the new generation of PCs and xCloud and all that kind of stuff, you know, I just want us to focus on that experience. I want us to focus so that everybody gets that amazing immersion, gets to hang out with Keanu Reeves, and so that's, I don't know, that's our brain. Our brain is, I mean, and I guess also there's a little bit of that from the standpoint of we also want people to feel good about, you know, the you know, the great video card they have in their PC box, and what does it do, and has it ray trace shadows and all that kind of stuff. There's certain support there and things that's important to PC players, you know, being able to configure, you know, the keyboard and your mouse however you want, and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, it really is about that. How do we get as many people possible playing in our worlds, and all enjoying it in a very similar way?
Tim, what about you? I mean, you've made some amazing games for console and PC. How do you think about that?
I mean, similarly, you know, I got my start in doing all those graphic adventures in the 90s, all PC, and I think a lot what Fergus was saying is that there are some smaller differences, but I feel like in the end, the things we focus on, like character and narrative and things, exist across all these platforms, and we do want to have them have the freedom they want on PC. They definitely want to, you know, configure all these different modes so they can see your game and really own that game. But I think in the end, it's the nuts and bolts of the guts of the game are very similar. Yeah.
Now, Dom, you brought up something when we were chatting a little bit earlier, and I want to talk to you all about this. xCloud, we've got xCloud on the floor. That'll be coming in the future. That's an interesting way to take games, because now instead of creating it for the PC, you're creating it kind of for the cloud, right? And Dom, you had an interesting experience where we brought Hellblade to xCloud. You played it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so to kind of echo what Fergus was saying, like for us, we want to get...
No bardzo mnie zastanawiam, dlaczego oni właśnie z gry typu Hellblade, z mocnej historii, ciekawego pomysłu, przeszli do shootera multiplayerowego.
For me, it's about... xCloud is about convenience and content. Right, you make that thing super convenient for people, and we bring super compelling content, and it will be successful. The first time I really saw xCloud was on a trip out to Redmond, and we had a half-an-hour slot booked in to take a look at xCloud. So I thought, this will be cool. And they had Hellblade set up on a mobile device with a pad. I played it for maybe 5 minutes, and I put it down and said, how can we help? How can we be part of this? Because it just felt and looked amazing.
Yeah.
So, from there on out, it's on the show floor here. You can go and play Hellblade.
Hellblade's actually on the show floor.
It's
that's
on
right.
the show floor, so you can go and play it on a. I think it's on a mobile and it's on a tablet.
Right.
And it just works.
Yeah.
The team have taken
Jak
it.
to by powiedział
So it's
pewien
incredible. So for
znany
me,
pan
xCloud,
z obozu zielonych,
I think
innych zielonych.
for me, like as a father of 2 young children, like I love the idea of being able to have my kind of 4K setup at home where I can play my games, and then life happens, and I need to go and put the kids to bed, or I need to go to work, and then the 4K version of my life no longer happens, and I am then off, but I can pick up that game again and I can play it on my phone or my tablet when I'm on the train on the way to work.
Yeah.
I think it's super, super special. And as we were talking about earlier, as developers, we can make one version of the game, and everyone can enjoy that the game as creators
saw it, yeah.
intended.
Right. Regardless of what, you don't have to worry about the screen size. And I mentioned first, and I mentioned the mouse and keyboard bindings or all of that stuff. It just works. We handle that on the platform side.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was years and years ago, we're in Irvine, California, and Blizzard's right next to us, and I kind of grew up in the industry early on doing some stuff with Blizzard, so I got to know Michael Morhaime really well. And as Blizzard started to be super successful, one of the things I asked him, however many years ago, it might have been when StarCraft was coming out, and I said, well, why do you think a lot of your games are being so successful? Because they kind of went from no one to the top of the industry very quickly. And he said, at the time, you as a game developer, you can sometimes go, well, we want our game to support everything, and so you're just pushing the poor PC, and the heat is melting things in the back of it, and the card is dying, and all this kind of stuff. And he said at Blizzard, one of my main things is to constantly say, min spec, is to constantly say, how do we have there not be a requirement of having the highest end video card and the highest this.
Which is another way of saying make it as broad as possible.
No, that's exactly what his feeling was.
Yeah.
And he was doing it for 2 reasons. I mean, he was doing it for the reason for, well, that's how you sell as many units as possible back in that day, right? But I think the second thing was it meant that everybody could enjoy the same experience.
Yeah.
And they weren't hampered by what they could afford.
Right. That's fantastic. How about you, Tim? Got anything to add there?
I think he nailed it.
What
That
he
was really
said.
good.
One of the other common themes that we saw, Matt, when you were on stage, and many of you were on stage, was Game Pass. Mm-hmm. Game Pass, a huge priority for us. We started a couple of years ago. How do you think about Game Pass as the head of the studio? Then I want to talk to each of you guys as developers, how it's helped, how it's helped you.
It is absolutely a great place to discover games. And I'm gonna, I could sit up and kind of do the sales pitch on, hey, it's where your next great game is and things. I'll just give a very specific example. We work with the teams working on State of Decay 2 at Undead Labs, and that was a game that went for sale, and then we put it in Game Pass, which I believe is a great place to find a game that you might not have otherwise played. Sure. And we can look at the data, and we suddenly see a bunch of people coming in and playing State of Decay and sticking with it, but they're people that we've...
Ja na przykład byłem w tej grupie, bo jeszcze rozdawali do CD Action Game Passa.
I think for the team that worked on State of Decay, that's fantastic, because back to this kind of discovery, broad audience, if State of Decay was a game that you think, wow, I'm not really into this kind of game, I don't really want to go spend all the money, but now because of Game Pass, I'll go try it out. Why not?
Right.
And I just start to think of places where, whether it's I subscribe to music now, so I'm not having to buy something, or whether it's it's Netflix and I'm just kind of going through the menu and I see that's interesting. Next thing you know, I'm up till 3 a.m. binging like the first 3 episodes, right? That's kind of what Game Pass enables, is discovery. So for us as the creative side of the house and the game design side of the house, we really look at it as this is a great place to get a game in front of new players.
And we saw that with Sea of Thieves.
Yes.
Sea of Thieves is a great classic example for us where it's a game that maybe, okay, I'll check it out. The barrier to entry being in Game Pass was low, and they've seen tremendous success, haven't they?
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Sea of Thieves that you bring that up is, just to get into a little bit of business, people will say, well, if you put that game into Game Pass, does that mean that you're not actually selling any more units and things? the funny thing is when we put Sea of Thieves into Game Pass, we saw the number of people that were out buying the disc go up also.
Really?
Because I think it creates this effect of people talking about the game, wanting to play the game.
Sure.
And for us, whether you want to own a
To
disc,
ciekawe. Bo szczerze nie sądziłem, że tak to może działać, że jeżeli oni dają jakieś gry do tego Game Passu, to one się sprzedają od razu lepiej? Albo nie wpływa to na spadek na przykład sprzedaży?
I want to switch over to you guys on the studio side. How do you think about Game Pass, and what does it enable for you guys, Dom?
I think players want games that take creative risks. And I think developers want to take creative risks as well. And Game Pass, for me, really is at the heart of that.
Risks, right.
You know, it's the heart of I think this whole group. You know, we can combine to make an awesome subscription service for people.
Yeah.
And each of our games independently don't need to appeal to everyone. They can appeal to groups within Game Pass. The story fans, or the combat fans, or the RPG fans, or the driving game fans, they can all find something within Game Pass. They all give a reason for you to get involved in Game Pass. So I think in the kind of the world outside of Game Pass, it's very, very difficult to take those creative risks because everything is P&L based. You build a game for X amount of money, you then have to sell X amount of units to make that money back. And the problem with that is then you start to ask questions about, well, does the game appeal to enough people?
Right. Min-spec.
Yeah. So then you have to start to pull some of those things back. But I think from a development perspective within Game Pass, we can be really confident with taking creative risks because we just need to find an audience within that the service and be a building block. One of the reasons why people want to get involved in Game Pass. I think the really nice thing with it as well is that the barriers are so low for players that they can try all different types of games.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny because I'm a huge. You and I haven't really talked about this, but I am a massive Hellblade fan, as you know. When I played that, it just blew my mind with the audio and everything about it. And then you brought it to Game Pass.
Yeah.
And I told people, I said, you have to try this game if you haven't tried it. And it converted. They're like, well, I'm like, it doesn't cost anything. Just download it and try it. And people came back to me 2 weeks later like, wow, you're right. You know, it is an amazing game, but you got to play with headphones on. But
it's the first thing that I wanted to do when we announced that we were part of Xbox Game Studios. It was one of the first questions I asked: how do we get Hellblade into Game Pass?
Yeah,
it was the first thing I wanted to do because I want that game to be played by as many people as possible. Because for me, it's about creating fans. It's not about making the most amount of money. It's about creating fans that love what we do.
Yeah.
And the more people we can get that game in front of, the better. And we build that love for what we do. And Game Pass is just amazing for that. It's a really engaged audience that we can show our content to.
Yeah. You've got a great example of it. You know, you just shipped it with Hellblade. What do you guys think about Game Pass from your perspective, from the outside?
I mean, yeah, similarly, like we like to make games that are unique, and I think that can that's the appeal to us, and take the creative risk that Dom's talking about. But that uniqueness might be off-putting to someone who's not comfortable with that or hasn't seen it before. And if they're buying a physical copy of a disc or something, it might be enough that it would stop them. But on Game Pass, maybe they come for another game and they see our game sitting there and they're like, I am confused and intrigued by that game, and it's free to just try. I'll just try it. And I feel like that's all the chance that we're asking for is just that chance to get someone to try our games. Then I feel like we can give them something they'll really like. But if you can't get someone to try your game, it's very difficult. You know.
Yeah.
And just to follow, one of the things that when Matt was first talking to us about Game Pass, one of the things that he was saying was, it's not our goal for every game that we now make and pitch and develop to be an apex predator. That was before Apex Legends came out. But the example was that a lot of times for us as studios, we would have to go and pitch like gigantic budgets, and sort of we were making the Swiss Army knife of games because it had to do this and it had to do that. And like there's this like sales list of things that our games have to do to excite a publisher about why we want to do it. And that's not the point of Game Pass. The point of Game Pass is us to go make games that we think we should make, that we know that our fans, or we hope that our fans will love, because it's an extension of who we are and the kind of games that we want to make, versus this idea of having sort of these external stimuli or lists that we have to do because that's kind of how we would get funding. And so that's, I think, changed very much how we even look at how we pitch our games internally and how we start the early design documents. And so I think that's going to change in a lot of ways for the games that we end up making that show up on Game Pass.
Yeah, it's interesting because you talked about all, having to make the pitch to the publisher, which you don't have to do that anymore.
No.
You just have to talk to Matt. But it's interesting how, Matt, your strategy of let the studios go build and do what they do great just meshes perfectly with Game Pass in terms of go build great stuff, and now we have this venue for people to experience.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about Hellblade, but it's just a great example. When we first set out over a year ago and said we really need to grow first-party studios, there was a very specific conversation with my boss, Phil Spencer, where I said, we can go do this, but I want to ask a question. If we acquire Ninja Theory and they go and make 5 more games just like Hellblade, are you good with that? And he said absolutely. Yeah. And so that was kind of the test of, are we on board with taking creative risks, making games that are of a certain scope, and making sure that we try to go broad as opposed to, can we go try to fit everything into some kind of checkbox.
Well, it's interesting because if you're in the chat right now or you're on Twitter, hit me up and ask me some questions. We've only got about 15 more minutes. But one of the questions I had in the chat was, when we add new studios, and this is for you, Matt, is there any preference on whether we want them to create new IPs or continue existing? So it kind of speaks to that.
Yeah, there's no question, for example, we have these big franchise teams like Halo and Minecraft, and you say, well, what's the Minecraft team going to work on next? They're going to work on Minecraft.
Right.
And we're going to try and go expand that franchise. We had Minecraft Dungeons here at the show, which is getting a great reception. The Halo team, they're going to work on next. Halo, right?
With Master Chief,
But what we've got with the studios that we've added over the last year is the freedom to go try some things out and to go bring some variety. So the question is, the franchises that we have will create new IP, but they will do that within their franchise boundary, right?
Sure.
So there will be, just like Disney with Star Wars, there'll be new kinds of Star Wars movies, but it's going to be Star Wars. But with these teams, it's funny because you keep saying to me they don't have to go to publishers, they just have to come to me. I actually have no idea what most of Ninja Theory is doing right now in terms of the game design, right? At our Compulsion studio in Montreal with Guillaume, he's been working on a game. I'm signing expense reports for people off doing research, but I haven't seen it. It's not like they've got to submit a piece of paper to me and I kind of,
Here's
back.
the pitch paper.
Yeah, there will be a process where we'll have some folks take a look at it and make sure it's the right thing to build, but it's not like I've kind of become this proxy publisher. We really have to trust the studios to go out and come up with new IP. So the answer to the question is we absolutely want new IP. We absolutely want new ideas, and I feel that we're very fortunate that we've got a collection of studios that includes things like Halo and Minecraft, which I hope 50 years from now are still going strong, and we've got a great collection of studios who are given the freedom to go make up what they want.
I had a question from here for each of the devs here on stage. Is there another studio on this screen that you guys would like to collaborate with? I don't want you to announce anything. Just if you have anything to say. Tim, I think you have an idea over there.
I like pirates. I do like pirates. The history with pirates.
This was an unscripted question.
Yes, exactly.
Completely off.
Yeah,
So
I would actually say for me, one of them is definitely talking to Undead Labs. They do incredible open world, right? With the State of Decay, and so that's something like when I think about the role-playing games that I want to make and putting those people in, putting people in those worlds. They're the ones they've gone and done and created this huge world, and so for me, that's an interesting collaboration that we could learn from each other.
Yeah. When you
And pirates.
and pirates.
Yeah.
Pirates are mine.
We're gonna have pirates.
Yeah, definitely pirates. But other than the kind of the studios up on the board there, like we've done quite a lot of work with Microsoft Research. So we're based in Cambridge in the UK. There's a big Microsoft research office in Cambridge as well, which up until we joined Xbox Game Studios had no idea what happened in that building. I would go past that building every day and kind of wonder what's going on in there.
So this is nothing to do with games. This is a whole other part of our business.
Yeah, it's a whole other part. But they're in the same cities. We're like, okay, let's get together, and you know, we're having some.
You can go over and use the copier now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my blue badge. Yeah, no, but they, you know, they're doing some really cool stuff there. They love what we're doing, so we're looking at ways that we can collaborate and connect. So it's not just between the studios, but there's really interesting stuff going on across the whole organization.
Yeah, if you need a copy of Excel, then we've got you covered.
Yeah,
Whatever you need.
he's all over it. Yeah.
If you guys have any questions in house, raise your hand in just a little bit. We're gonna pass the mic around. Matt, when you went through the acquisition, a lot of these acquisitions, all of them, do you go to them and say, all right, we're gonna buy you, but you need to ship something in 24 months or 10 months, or how does that work?
No, I mean,
When you're chopping on your cigar, sitting in the corner office.
Yeah, everybody's been gracious enough to give us a look into the window of what they think that, you know, that they'd like to make, and sort of, hey, here's the things that we're planning. And I think also, particularly in the case of something like Double Fine, there's such an existing library of things, right? So we can bring some of those forward. We can do remasters and things. So it's more a question of, hey, what are you working on? But I think, I don't know, I try to discipline myself more to come in and look at it as what is, and probably all of you even heard me ask this, you know, you can call me out on this, but if there's one thing that you would want to do better in your studio, what would it be? Right? And what's the, you know, like I'll just use Jeff Strain at Undead Labs. You know, Jeff, what's something that you wish you had? And he's like, I wish I could hire a team of the best animators in the industry, right? And it's like, all right, well, how do we make that happen? Right? And so it's more, what's the thing that you wish you always had that was just never quite there? And like, how do we figure out how to pull that together?
Right. Okay, great. Do we have any questions in the house? Let's we get the microphones over. We have just about 10 minutes left. We'll see what we can do. Hello there. What's your name?
Hey, how you doing? People know me as Megatron on Twitter. Real quick, are you guys still trying to make studio acquisitions?
So are we still trying to do some acquisitions? You know, I've been doing a lot of interviews the last couple of days. We get asked that. We don't. I don't have a direction. Or, you know, Phil hasn't come to me and said, you know, I want 18 of these by July, right? It's more, and I said this earlier, it's more about the relationships we have and the kinds of studios. So if there are more studios out there like that we feel fit in terms of values, in terms of creativity, in terms of the people, then we'll talk to them. But it isn't like we've got a target.
There's not a magic number.
Yeah, there's not a magic number. So, and we have, again, you know, I just have the privilege of being able to represent the bigger teams that do so much of this work. We have a fantastic team who goes out and meets with people and is always trying to meet new studios and talk to people. So if we, you know, encounter one of those, then we start to talk, but there isn't really a quota or anything.
Thank you.
I think the slide could take just one more. I think that would lay out a little better if you slid them over. But that's it. I think that's the main thing you need to worry about.
Next question. Do you have
Graphic
anything in
design.
here? Oh, hi there.
Hi guys. Just a question on really how this ecosystem works. Whilst I understand the sort of safe place idea, I'm sure Microsoft does its sums, return on investment, blah, blah, blah. Can we expect there to be much churn in the studios that you've got? And I guess a second question from that is, in a Game Pass model, how do these guys get paid? How does the mechanics of that really work?
we get paychecks.
Is it like,
Well, I mean,
is it
like
sort
every
of
2
paid
weeks,
per
or-
minute like in
No,
music,
not
or
like
how
that.
does it work?
Sorry, in terms like churn and how we get. But when you mean churn, do you mean in terms of staff? Like,
Well, no, I mean if you know your studios perform really well, produce some really good games, but clearly there's another one that's lagging.
yeah.
Will they be replaced readily over time, or is this more of a long-term investment in the studios?
So I'm not going to put you guys on the spot with that, but I'll try to lead into it. So it is a little bit, it's a tough question, but I you know, from a reality point of view, I will say that another thing that happens before we acquire any studio is there's a pretty serious conversation that happens about, are we committed to this to the long term? And when we acquired Mojang, there was a lot of questions about, are you going to buy this? Are you going to shut it down? You know, what happened with when you went after, you know, they named some other studios, like let's talk about Lionhead and things like this. The principles that we set out at the beginning of that acquisition were, this still needs to be here 50 years from now. This has to be managed like it's a Mario, like it's a Star Wars, it's a Lord of the Rings. So I would just say we are very committed to the long term, and I feel that support from our CEO and from everybody all the way up to the board of directors at Microsoft. If you can believe it, there's a member on our board of directors who is a big fan of Phil and has really been a big advocate for gaming within Microsoft. So we are committed to the long term. In terms of how they get paid, that's one of the great things about Game Pass is I don't want them designing games to think about how many units it has to sell. Let's talk about audience. Let's talk about people discovering the game. And what we can offer from Microsoft is stability, and I think that they can trust that 20 years from now, Microsoft will still be here. So the picture that I hope is that everybody in the studio kind of takes a breath and relaxes and says, all right, this is great. I can sit down and just work on my thing now. I don't have to worry about whether this studio is going to still be here 5 years from now. That's a pretty serious aspect of my part of the job.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. We have another question out here. We have one right down here. I'm sorry, over here. Yes, hi there.
Hello, how you guys doing? I wanted to ask if you guys would do a fighting game, like all the studios, like Marvel vs. Capcom.
Yeah.
Like, Master Chief versus all the other characters.
That's an idea. An Xbox Game Studios like Megamix.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Okay. Noted, Matt. You heard it.
Yeah.
Like I said, the studios are free to make whatever they want.
Yeah.
We had another question right down here in the front. Hi there.
Right here, I'm Delilah.
Hi.
Hi. So the question I have is, do you ever worry about the abandoned IP, like Mech Assault, Crimson Skies, Recore, like all these games that came out that people are fans of that studios are not focusing on anymore?
Well, so I'll answer that quick, and then I'd love to hear from these guys because they also have games that they've made and some games that have moved on. That's a tricky balance of managing because we heard earlier the question of, hey, are you going to focus on new things? But then there are also some things that are very beloved. For example, we have here in the briefing, we showed a trailer for Age of Empires 2, right? And I think Age of Empires first appeared in the late 1800s. Maybe not that old, but it's been around for a while, and that's clearly a game that people love and that we're going to keep refreshing and bringing forward. And there is, one of the things I love about what we do at Xbox is we are so dedicated to our back compat program and being able to bring your library of games. This is an amazing point in game consoles that you can now own 4 generations of content on Xbox, all the way to original Xbox, 360, Xbox One, and then coming up soon, Project Scarlet. So that's a huge library. So I think in the future we will reach back and touch some IP that maybe we think, hey, now is the time for this to come back. Or actually, more importantly, if one of these guys raised their hand and said, you know what, I think I could make the best Conquer game that's ever been made, and we'd say, we could go bring Conquer back to life. But it's a thing that we think about it, really to manage of what's the balance between new IP, when do we go back, and then what are the things that clearly people... So Master Chief Collection that we're bringing to PC this summer, goes all the way back to Halo CE, right? And so in some places we're going to do that. So great question, and I would say just keep your eyes out over the next couple of years that there may be some things that are in the vault that we bring forward. But I'd love you guys all work with IP that you've created that's 5-10 years old. How do you think about what to bring forward?
Well, I think for me, it's not even so much what do I want. It's really, I think when we, have a game finishing and we have a new team, we have a team or we're putting a new team together. For me, it's just what do they want to work on, right? So it's kind of, I'm going to come to it and say, well, I don't know about that IP. That's a little weird, or just it's not interesting anymore because you can have abandoned IP that no one really. Maybe it's abandoned for a reason, and so for me that's what it is. It's just if it's a game the team wants to make, then that's something we want to talk about, and that may mean a new IP, it may be something recent, something, or it could be something old. So really, it really has to be up to them.
Yeah, I think that. Sorry, I think the reason that IP gets abandoned sometimes is because essentially you can't get the funding, you can't get the backing to make something with it again. To kind of bring it back to Game Pass. Like I think Game Pass is an opportunity to look at IP that maybe has been left behind and go within that model, what could we do with it? because for us as developers, it gives us an opportunity to do something that is in a completely different mold, that doesn't need to be kind of justified in those traditional green light terms. So, you know, I think there's interesting opportunities to look at the IPs that haven't kept up with the traditional AAA standards, and how they can now fit into that more kind of diverse model that there is in Game Pass.
Yeah, it's always a compromise between, you know, I've been making games for a long time. There are a lot of IPs that get brought up, like, are you going to do a sequel to Psychonauts or something like that? And compromising between that and something new. We're all creative people, and we like to make up new stuff, and maybe someone would like this new thing. They just don't know about it yet. You know, you want to be able to sure you protect that at the same time. But sometimes, like you were saying, it's about the inspiration of the team, what they feel inspired to do. And after saying no to doing sequels for a long time, just felt this idea for Psychonauts 2 that was really inspiring and like made us want to work on it. And having a studio that has multiple teams, like we have, like allows us to do both. We can do a sequel like Psychonauts 2 and do something like Rad, which is all new. And I know what you're saying about the old IPs, but it's always a balancing act.
All right, unfortunately, we only have a couple minutes, so I'm going to have to wrap it up here. I want to thank Matt Booty, of course, and Dom and Fergus and Tim for joining me on stage, and welcome to the family, a proper welcome. And do you have any final words, Matt?
No, just thanks for everybody that joined us here, and also everyone that joined us at E3. It's great to see E3 so energized and there to be just so much excitement. I think so much of that comes from the fans, so thanks.
All right, we will let you guys go. Thank you very much, and have a great show, everybody. Bye-bye.
In my head. Yeah.